Well, good morning, and here we are on Mirador television on a Friday morning, and a spectacular treat for you because despite the fact that they both look ugly old buggers, they are very good in their own sphere. The two Bs, the two barristers. Philip?
Yes, I'm a retired barrister, and my dear friend and colleague Richard Barden is not a retired barrister.
Or
Well,
I'm not shy and retiring, certainly. Yeah.
away we go. I'll leave it to you, gentlemen.
All right, thank you, Keith. Just out of interest, Keith, how are you doing generally?
Not too bad. Um, just a reminder to everybody that Parkinson's never goes away, never
Yeah,
leaves you alone. But to wake up to the sound of Casper in full throat is absolutely wonderful.
yeah. I'm not sure there is a canary there. I think I think he's just got a tape recorder on a loop.
Right, so
wish,
away you go, gentlemen.
I wish, because I could turn the bloody tape recorder off. I can't turn Casper off.
No,
Not that I would want to.
no. I don't know how long canaries live for.
Well, they can live for up to 10 years.
All right. Yeah.
In the domestic scenario. I mean, that takes some doing. I mean, we think he's about 4. I have to say think, because as I explained the other week, we adopted him from an old chap who had to go into a care home.
Right.
So everything is really rather vague. But we think he's about 4.
So he's used to being cared for by somebody who needs a care home. Yeah.
Yes, well, that's why I fitted. We fitted together very well.
I can see that. Matron will be around with your medication in a moment, Phil. Don't you worry.
Yes. Well, you keep your eye on your own medication, Mr. B.
Yeah, I know. Yes. Well, I suppose at some point we ought to talk about something legal, because otherwise Keith won't pay us that huge amount of money that we get for every appearance we make.
No, I know the appearance fee is very generous, isn't it?
Oh, it's remarkable. Yeah.
Yes, Lynn.
I just wanted to ask you this, Phil, because it's something that I've always found to be an interesting tale that you tell. And that's the reason I remember it, because as far as I'm concerned, it's the only interesting tale you tell. But you did have a significant proportion of time as a barrister doing a case down in Wales, didn't you?
Yes, I did in 1990, when I was in London Chambers. I was in Gray's Inn. I was offered what was meant to be a 7-week case, being led on a rather grisly murder that took place in Cardiff, in an area called Bute Town near the docks.
Just looking back then, that area of Cardiff was really rather rough in those days, wasn't it?
It was A, very rough. It was B, very ethnically diverse.
Yeah.
In fact, more on the non-white side than whites.
Yeah.
And as we learned after the trial, because there was a corruption trial involving the officers involved, it was a blatant attempt to break up that what they perceived as ethnic criminality, drugs, prostitution, and so on. There were 5. God, sorry, Richard.
No, you go ahead.
5 defendants. One of whom I represented, but as I stressed, I was led by a silk. Our client, a man called Stephen Miller, who is the only one who was convicted and imprisoned, who is still alive. He was the pimp for the girl, the prostitute, who was so terribly murdered. And it was a Jack the Ripper job.
Right.
She was found in her flat, literally sliced up. Dreadful, frenzied attack. Eyewitnesses to movements in and around that flat at the relevant time did give an identical picture of a single man, a white man, who was looking very nervous, very edgy, who then scooted away from the address at, again, about the relevant time. The police failed to follow that up.
Gosh.
And instead, they arrested 5 men, all of whom were either black or of Afro-Caribbean origin. Stephen Miller, our client, who was in fact a Londoner, Tony Parrish, a guy called Abdullahi, and then 2 very well-known Krim brothers in the Butetown area called John and Ronnie Actie. Sorry, not brothers. Ronnie was John's cousin, but John Actie was a big name in the naughty brigade. He was a sort of man that, if he was arrested by PC, he'd say, "You're too small to arrest me. Bring an inspector." He was that sort of guy.
Right.
Ironically, not many years ago, he appeared in a TV program about the case, and it was painful to watch because by then, Paris and Abdullahi had died of natural causes, but still young men. And so it was John Actie relating how the police, as it transpired, had corruptly just tried to break this community, should we call it. Anyway, I was told it was going to be 7 weeks. It lasted 18 months.
So where was it tried, Phil?
It was tried in Swansea.
Right. Oh gosh.
In the old Guildhall, not the more modern Crown Court, but the old Guildhall.
I've done a trial in the old Guildhall there. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, it was transferred to Swansea for security reasons because
there's a nice beach opposite the court there, though, isn't there?
There's a nice what?
Beach opposite the court there.
There is. There is.
Yeah.
It's also very near to the cricket ground and rugby ground.
The cricket ground, where we ought to mention this, dear old Sir Garfield Sobers, who's now gone, of course, that was on the Swansea cricket ground, was where he was the first player in the professional game to hit 6 sixes in 1 over.
He did indeed. He played for Notts.
Yeah.
And he, I think it was Malcolm Price was the name of the bowler. Certainly Malcolm somebody.
Yeah. Yeah.
Doesn't matter. But as you say, 6 sixes off 1 over, which is quite extraordinary.
Because that ground is sort of halfway between where that court is and the middle of Swansea.
Correct.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Which again at the time, and to a certain extent, I believe still is a rather rundown city.
It is. I didn't enjoy Swansea, with all due respect to it. I was lucky enough in the end, because in the end, the thing was lasting so long, I had to actually rent a flat. Great. I started out in hotels, and then in the end rented a flat. Well, just to put this into perspective, when I went to Swansea believing I'd be back within 2 months maximum, my daughter Jessica, who you know of, was 3 months old. By the time I got home finally, she was nearly 2.
Yeah. Well, that must.
So Jackie was left
Your wife,
Jackie was left alone with me just coming home at weekends for all that time.
Yeah.
We had no idea that it was going to grow like that, but it was a trial and a retrial.
What a blessing for your family, though. Think of it that way.
Funnily enough, that's what Jackie said quite a lot. And comments like, "Did you have to come home?"
Yeah.
Which was a tad hurtful, given that the drive, which is bad enough these days, but the drive in those days was absolutely rubbish because they were building the M3.
Mm-hmm.
And so all these dreadful roadworks. Anyway, look, the first trial went ahead with 3 principal witnesses and a set of interviews of my client, which were ultimately said by the Court of Appeal by Lord Chief Justice Taylor. He said, "Short of actual physical violence, I have never listened to, and I hope I never will have to again, such a series of interviews that were so intimidatory and suggestive of a vulnerable defendant."
Oh, good grief.
That was the appeal, the eventual appeal.
Yeah.
But going back, the 3 principal witnesses were all lying through their teeth. They were 3 prostitutes, 2 female, 1 male. And it transpired after the event that they had been intimidated so much by the police that they'd been persuaded to sign statements that were completely untrue, which included going up to Lynette White, who is the deceased, going up to her flat because they knew where she lived and seeing the 5 defendants in there slicing her up. It went that far.
Good grief. And that simply hadn't taken place.
It hadn't taken place. And we know that, as I will come to shortly, we know that for a fact. Yes, and so the interviews of Stephen Miller, which in evidential terms should not have been evidence against his co-defendants, but try telling a jury that.
Yes. Pausing there, Phil, just to clarify that. So, because an interview is conducted with somebody in the absence of their co-defendants, and therefore the co-defendant hasn't got the opportunity of responding to what the person is saying, in the ordinary course an interview, unlike evidence given in court in front of a co-defendant,
quite so,
an interview with police should never be held as evidence against the co-defendant.
No, that's what should happen.
Yes.
I'm not saying that the first trial judge did not direct the jury that, but the Crown's case, led by a bloke that nobody really liked down there called David Elfer, he was very naughty because he really painted the picture that the interviews told the whole story.
Yeah.
And so from the very outset, much to the chagrin of the defence silks, who came to frankly loathe him for his tactics, the jury were gently persuaded to take that interview as exactly what happened.
Yeah. Just now, pausing it there. Sorry, Phil, just pausing you there. Was that the David Elfer who became a judge in London?
Yes.
Right, because I once cross-examined him.
That must have been interesting.
Yes, it was when I did family, so I was really quite junior. And he was a witness for a mother, and I was for the father. It was a custody dispute, as I say, and he, of course, as you know, family law has no rules of evidence at all.
Apparently not, no.
And there was this little Welsh advocate on the other side, and she called Elfer, and she said, it had to go to the High Court, obviously, because he was a judge. It was in front of Mummery. And she said, "Now tell me, would you agree with me that? And I was just about to get up on my feet and say, hold it, that's a leading question. So it would be, do you agree with me that?
Yeah.
And in fact, I didn't need to, because he said, Madam, I don't know what you're going to ask me, but I won't be able to answer it because that is a leading question.
Well, good for David. Ironically, I was very much his only friend in that case.
Right.
The two juniors from the Welsh bar, one of whom became a Lord Justice of Appeal. Right. The other is now a sitting judge down in Cardiff.
Yeah.
They loathed him.
Yeah.
Because he'd been the South Wales CPS had just employed from Hampshire a very senior executive, and because he was a Western Circuiteer, CPS Circuiteer, he was a big fan of Alpha, and so ignoring all the Welsh silks, all the Welsh prosecutors, he shooed in Alpha to prosecute the murder. So he was immediately deeply unpopular. And then it transpired that he'd had like lifelong feuds with the chap who led me in the first trial and one of the others in the first trial, both of whom were Western Circuiteers. So it was quite an uncomfortable situation, really.
Yeah, that doesn't make for an easy trial, does it? When there's
it wasn't easy.
Between
he tried to be in the robing room for the first week of the trial, and he was completely shunned. In the end, he had his own room. In the end,
Great.
We never saw him again. Well, back to the story.
Yeah,
Miller was special needs, to say the least. His IQ was very, very low. His literacy was almost non-existent. And he was deemed to be ultra-suggestible.
Yeah.
Now, they interviewed him for a total of 19 hours. 19 hours over 3 days.
You see nowadays that wouldn't be admitted as evidence.
No. But it was. And the other culprit, other than the police officers, was his local solicitor.
Right.
Who sat in the interviews and did nothing whilst two pairs of police officers, and it's the old Mr. Nice and Mr. Nasty, basically interrogated this vulnerable man for all those hours in the most appalling way. Anyway, we called a man who is now famous, but in those days it was very much in its infancy, the concept of suggestibility. And the bloke we called was this wonderful man called Gisley Gudjohnson.
Right.
Now, Gisley Gudjohnson, who is now retired, but has written 2 exceptionally good books on this subject, gave evidence that Miller, on the tests he did on him, was very, very suggestible. Well, that was completely besmirched by the 2 judges. I'll tell you why there were 2 judges in the end in a minute, but both of them poured scorn on Gisley. And the second judge in the trial that did finish, Mr. Justice Leonard, called him the good doctor. Whenever he refers to his evidence, he called him the good doctor. Now,
wasn't Leonard the judge who kicked a reporter when he was doorstepped outside his house?
I didn't know that, but of course the son, Tony Leonard, is a judge.
Yes.
I don't know. Yeah. I don't know which Leonard it would be.
No, it's the older one. Yeah.
It doesn't sound like the older one.
All right.
I think the son is a bit more spirited.
Okay. Right.
Why were there 2 trials? Because the first judge, a High Court judge called David McNeill, who was very ill when he started the trial, died before he did his summing up.
So you'd had all the evidence,
All the evidence, all the speeches, the lot.
and so how long had that process taken to that stage?
Well, that process, which was meant to be 7 weeks, had taken 6 months.
Right, and then he at the end of the case is meant to sum up the case.
Correct.
But wasn't available to do that because he was
so
dead.
I left Arundel at 0500 on the Monday, hoping for the case to finish one way or another. I got to the courthouse. I walked in the robing room. You could have heard a pin drop.
Oh, gosh.
And my leader, and this was before mobile phones and stuff, my leader said, have you heard about David McNeil? I said, no. What's happened? He died in the bath in the lodgings yesterday. It was a miserable moment, to say the least. So the jury were called in. There was another standing judge, circuit judge, who discharged them. We had a 2-month adjournment, and then we all went back.
Yeah, because obviously it's not as if another judge can do the summing up, because the judge needs to have heard the evidence in order to sum it up properly to a jury.
Yeah.
Sorry.
And it transpired that he hadn't actually yet completed the summing up in writing.
Right.
Anyway, so back we went. Let me say that by this time, my so-called practice in London had utterly evaporated.
I was going to say that's what happens when you have a long case, isn't it?
I walked back into my chambers in Gray's Inn Square, and there was a layer of dust on the shelf where my briefs used to be, and half of chambers didn't recognise me.
Chose not to recognise.
A side story is that whilst I was there in Wales for all that time, there was a chap in my chambers, and he did his utmost to become head of chambers and oust me. And when I got back and found out about this, because the others didn't really like him very much, and so they wouldn't have it, I said to him, Graham, all you had to do was ring me and I would have been happy to give you the headship, but anyway, there we are. So back we went for another 10 months. Same witnesses called. Gisley treated badly. All the tapes were heard.
Did that second jury, were they told that it was a retrial?
Do you know, I can't remember that. I think they were.
Yeah, it's always a difficult one, that, isn't it?
Yeah, I think they were, because the committal proceedings, which were the old-fashioned way, as the viewer may not know, of committing a trial to the Crown Court from the Magistrates' Court, the committal proceedings had been such a security problem in Cardiff. There were demonstrations outside. The whole of Bute Town was up in arms. I mean, blah, blah, blah. So it was so well publicised locally, if not nationally at that time, that I'm sure they would have been told. There would be no way of avoiding it, really.
Yeah. And sometimes when you have a retrial, there may well be reference to evidence that's been given in the first trial anyway.
Exactly, because we had transcripts.
Right.
Imagine this, typed out transcripts of the first trial, all paid for.
How many pages would that have been, I wonder?
It was like a very thick A4 file.
Yeah.
So the same witnesses were called, the tapes were played at each trial. Each of my leaders, because the first leader, Anthony Evans QC, as he was then, he dipped out. He wouldn't do it. He'd had enough. So my new leader was a chap called Roger Frisbee.
Yes.
Now, Roger Frisbee, you being a Templar tenant in those days, was well known in the temple and in Alvino's.
Yes.
He was a committed drinker.
Yeah.
He had been made a judge at one point, but he'd done something in drink that in the end, they withdrew it.
Yeah.
So he remained a barrister.
Alvino
so
is the sorry, just so we're clear. Alvino is the wine bar on the edge of the temple, upon which John Mortimer in the Rumpole book based Pomeroy's.
He called it Pomeroy's, yes.
Yes, but it's clearly based upon Alvino.
Entirely so.
Yeah. Very old-fashioned wine drink.
Yes, I love Alvino's, actually. I really did like it.
Yes,
but that's another story.
They had some weird rules, like women couldn't stand at the bar in Alvino.
Correct.
Just bizarre. Anyway, sorry, Phil. You're playing the frisbee.
Yeah. Look, part of our dynamic together, Richard, is that these asides are very good because they break things up and they are of interest.
Sorry. Yeah.
Is your Wi-Fi okay? Because you're starting to fade on me and.
No. I think it's okay.
Good. All right.
I don't know what's happened to Keith, but maybe.
No. Well, I think he's just. He's
listening.
There
he is.
He's coming back, I think.
I think the other thing at Alvino is that a woman couldn't dine alone, as I recall.
That's right. Yeah.
You're right. That's what I was thinking.
A couple of female journalists took them to court on the basis of sex discrimination, and the judge at first instance rejected their claims. The judge had been a member of Mild Chambers, which is virtually next door to Alvino, and the then senior clerk would spend every afternoon in Alvino, courting solicitors. And there was a very strong suspicion that Reg, the senior clerk, who'd spoken to the management at Alvino, had a word with this judge who was an ex-member of Chambers, say, whatever you do, you can't let these women win this. And then it went to the Court of Appeal, and the Court of Appeal said, we don't understand what the judge was doing. This is clearly sex discrimination. and also, it's a place where if you went in there, you had to wear a tie. And if you weren't wearing a tie, they had a series of ties behind the bar, and the barman would come up and say, "Would sir please put this on?" Yeah. But I quite liked it, Phil, yes, for all of that.
Yeah, and it had a very good off-sales counter too. Because their own brand claret was my favourite by far. As I say, that's another story, as my liver would agree. Back to Swansea Crown Court. Retrial. Same old story. Voir dire now. Voir dire, a trial within a trial. In both trials, my leader had the tapes played to the judge and then made submissions, having cross-examined the police officers with what in fact turned out to be the truth at the corruption trial. And both judges said, no, perfectly admissible, much to the horror of the co-defending counsel, because they knew how Alpha was playing his hand. And so those interviews were the reality as far as the Crown were concerned. And ultimately that second jury agreed in relation to the three defendants who were not actors. So John and Ronnie Actie were bizarrely acquitted. whereby the evidence had been that they were in the room as well as the other three, doing dastardly things to this poor girl. Anyway, the three were convicted. Life imprisonment, obviously. I can't remember the tariff. I think it was like 25 years. Anyway, Abdullahi, if I remember rightly, died in prison. Tony Paris and Stephen Miller were eventually let out on appeal, having served 12 years. I've mentioned Lord Chief Justice Taylor. He was the one who did the appeal. Mike Mansfield represented them all in his usual amazing way, because my appeal got nowhere. I drafted grounds of appeal, didn't even get leave. And it wasn't my grammar. It was just that because Taylor's predecessor was the one who did the Guildford, the Birmingham 6 appeals. Yeah. Really hard line Chief Justice. I should know because he used to live in Verulam Buildings where my first chambers were, but I can't remember his flipping name.
No. Anyway.
Doesn't matter. But he was the one who had presided over the leaves to appeal or not on the first tranche of appeals. Whenever I met Miller, whenever I met him during the trials, in conference, in the prisons post-conviction, he constantly denied doing this. It never, ever changed. You know, I did not do this, Phil. I did not do this, Phil. I just remember it ringing in my ears. But he didn't do it. And why do we know that? Because they went back. The cops were tried for corruption and perversion of the course of justice.
What was the corruption?
The corruption was the conspiracy to falsely accuse members of the ethnic community in Butetown and behave appallingly. I mean, there was no, what did they call it? There was no Reaper in those days.
No.
So tell the viewer what Reaper is, Richard.
No, you tell them, go on.
Well, Reaper is a way that the police force and the CPS look at misconduct on the part of police officers. Reaper is an acronym for the Regulatory and Investigatory Powers Act, I think.
Yeah.
That didn't exist in those days, so the corruption trial was about that. And obviously, together with that, alleged perversion of the course of justice.
And were the police convicted?
No, because what happened was, funny this, all the relevant paperwork had been lost by the CPS. So the judge was forced to stay the prosecution. And that's what he did.
That means stop the prosecution completely.
Yeah.
It's not a finding of not guilty. It's just
correct.
A stopping of the proceedings. Yeah.
So that was done, and there was this revolting, for me, video from Welsh television showing these now retired, horribly overweight coppers, all of whom I recognised, and I knew their names because they'd interviewed Miller, outside the courthouse in Cardiff, all hugging each other and doing belly bumps because the judge had effectively thrown it out. So they were celebrating in public that they had effectively got off with what they'd been up to.
All of that occurred really a considerable time after the original trial, I think. Is that
very,
right?
very much so. Very much so. The wheels began to turn after the appeal was successful. The day of all papers, the campaigning newspaper for those three guys, hence the Cardiff Three, was the Daily Telegraph. The only newspaper that took the story up pre-appeal was the Daily Telegraph.
Good grief.
And good for them.
Yeah.
So the corruption trial fell apart. And you know what, Richard? And the viewer will be most surprised. 3 days after the corruption trial was stopped, they found the evidence. I kid you not. And the CPS then decided that it would be improper to reinstate the proceedings.
But the whole point of a stay is that you can reinstate proceedings.
That's exactly right.
As I said, it's not a finding of not guilty.
No. To this day, I have no idea. Well, of course, I have every idea. But no, the whole thing sucks.
Yes.
Anyway, many years later, the police, the South Wales police, decided to really try and sort this case out properly. And they went back to the flat after all those years, and with modern DNA techniques, they managed to obtain a single profile from stuff on the walls, stuff on the carpet, you name it, of the person they believe to be the killer. They did a search on the police national computer, and it came up with somebody who was a known local drugs dealer. And he was nicked, and he sang like a nightingale, and admitted it completely, and pleaded to the murder.
I think sing like a canary. Sing like a canary would be more appropriate, Phil, I think.
Yes.
No, so he pleaded guilty to it.
He pleaded guilty, and he was represented by a very down-to-earth Cardiff Silk called John Charles Rees. Now, John Charles Rees had been John Actie's barrister in the retrial. And as I've explained, John Actie was acquitted with his cousin Ronnie. Hence, eventually, the TV programme involving John Actie. So they found the killer, and guess what? He fitted perfectly to the identikit done by the police of some eyewitnesses of the nervous man looking very edgy and dodgy outside the door to the flats. It fitted him perfectly.
Good grief.
Now, you may agree there's something pretty spooky about this. You know, those three men, one of whom died in prison,
so how long did your client...
12 years for something they manifestly did not do.
Good grief. Yes. It's not a happy tale on any level, is it?
No, it's not a happy tale.
Yes. Not least because it involves you, but there we go.
But fascinating, Phil, that you should have been at the heart of something like this.
Yeah. Yes, it's a great story, Phil, and it's one of those things that I'm sure you'll agree. There are just a few cases in your career, in my career as well, where they stand out as opposed to the run-of-the-mill stuff. Is that right, Phil? I'm not sure I can hear you.
No, he seems to have
Phil,
music.
Can't hear you, Phil. Can't hear you, Phil. Can you hear me, Keith?
Yes, I can. I think something happened to Philip's microphone, and I'm just trying to see whether it's at this end or his end.
Can't hear you, Phil. I think Phil doing these broadcasts as interpretive mime is quite an attractive prospect, actually. So he can maybe he could learn British Sign Language and interpret what we're saying. Phil, if you can hear me, can you nod?
We seem to have lost a lot of things. Let's do that.
Do what? Hello, Keith.
Can you hear me, Richard?
I can now, because in fact I could hear Casper before I could hear you, which was very
well, I didn't
attractive.
realise. All I've got on my screen is you. I haven't got me. I haven't got Keith.
It will go with all those posters you've got in your bedroom. You know, that's fine. I don't know if you heard me earlier. I was just saying that you doing these broadcasts in mime, I think, would be preferable from now on, if that's okay.
I've no problem at all with that.
Yeah, and you could learn British Sign Language. And I know you know at least 2 signs.
About the 2, yeah.
Yeah. So that would be perfectly good. I can't see you, Phil, but I can hear you.
Yes, well, as I say, my whole screen is you. I've no idea what he's done.
No.
This is what happens.
Yeah,
he
I know.
Tries to take himself off screen, then back on screen, and it always goes wrong.
Yeah. Okay.
So I've no idea what to do. Do we abort?
No, we can have a little bit of a chat, can't we?
Yeah, absolutely.
If you're okay.
I mean, we're still live.
We're still live, and people can, I'm sure, hear you. And
yes, well, they'll see you, lucky people, and they'll hear me.
Yeah.
But we were going to talk, weren't we, about the more current stuff like early release of prisoners?
Yes, we were. And that sort of come to light really as an issue because of the suggestion that 2 of the people who were convicted of the manslaughter of police officer Andrew Harper are going to be released, or were going to be released. They each got, I think I'm right in saying 10 years.
It was at least 10, yes.
Yeah, they were, 3 of them were tried for murder.
Yeah.
They were acquitted of murder, but all convicted of manslaughter. And
one of the worst jury decisions I think I've ever come across, but there we are.
Yeah. And oddly enough, where that happened is relatively close to where I grew up.
I did wonder about that, actually.
Yeah, I know. And Mrs. Barton has a friend from university who lives even closer. And she knew both the officer and the three who were convicted because they were from a local travelling community. She said it you can imagine the impact. It's a very small sort of hamlet, really, and you can imagine the impact it had. But
it is sadly it is imaginable. It's awful.
Yeah.
I also remember that during the trial, it was said that one of these young men was clearly sort of schmoozing up to one of the female jurors.
Yes.
I don't know if you heard that yourself, but
yes.
Obviously this woman was rather smitten by this young man.
Yes. In fact, the sentencing judge dealt with that in his sentencing remarks, saying, because there was speculation that in some way this was sort of jury nobbling. And the judge said that as far as he's concerned, it wasn't, and he hadn't been told anything that would lead him to believe that it was jury nobbling. But there we go. It does sound very unfortunate if there was anything like that going on. But there we go. But
now, a 10-year sentence these days means you serve 2/3 at least, doesn't it?
That's right. Yes.
So the early release scheme is that such prisoners can be released at the halfway stage.
Exactly that. Yes.
Personally, I find it unthinkable that these two will now be released halfway.
No, I know. The one who was driving got 13 years, so he's not eligible for anything at the moment. But
no.
it does sound from the news this morning as if your man Burnham is putting a halt on the whole.
Excuse me a minute. I'm going to answer the door. Sorry.
Yeah. No. The Prime Minister has said this morning that he's going to put a halt on the early release scheme more generally, so that would frustrate the wishes of those two who were hoping to be released in a month or two's time. But it will also affect a lot of other people who no doubt had been led to believe that they were going to be released early. Now, it's probably no bad thing. In an ideal world, people ought to serve their sentences. The downside of it is that the reason for the early release suggestion was to deal with prison overcrowding, which is a major problem. And I was just saying, Andy Burnham seems to be saying we're not going to go ahead with early release, but it will lead to problems as to how many more people can even be sent to prison. I know it sounds ludicrous, but there will come a point in time where judges won't be able to sentence people to an imprisonment term because there won't be the spaces for them. And it's all well and good having thoughts of, well, we need to build more prisons. We do, but the problem is it requires a shorter term solution. Building a prison, it's not like putting up a tent. It would take quite a lot of time.
Certainly would.
To achieve that. And we're talking years, really. So it's a very knotty problem. And I don't know what the answer is, to be honest.
Nor do I, friend. Nor do I. I thought that Burnham, his initial reaction was to effectively scrap it.
Yeah.
But I thought he didn't quite do a U-turn, but I thought he got rather less committed to scrapping it. But we'll have to see.
You know, it may well be that he's just been told exactly that, but you know, the numbers game, as it were, of how many prison places there are left, and what are we going to do with the as it were, the new intake every day?
Yeah,
extra people going to prison, and there isn't a sort of vote-winning answer to that at all.
There are no votes politically, are there? There are no votes in defending criminals.
No.
And there are no votes. Well, there should be votes in having them sent to prison and, when convicted, and serve their full term.
Yeah.
But let's face it, in my view, the legal system and the prison service are the Cinderellas of the political funding system.
Oh, completely, yes. Yes. There's no question about that. You know, it's in terms of priorities, it falls flat on its face. It doesn't even. It gets knocked out in the qualifiers, as it were. It doesn't even get to the final.
No. The other thing I wanted to, before, in fact, I need to go quite shortly. We have been on for approaching an hour, which has been lovely.
Yeah.
Despite Keith's cack-handedness, was the killer of the Southport kids.
Yes.
Has now been moved to Broadmoor.
That's right. Yes.
Out of Belmarsh Category A and into Broadmoor because he's deemed a risk to other prisoners and staff.
Well, and also he clearly has some enduring a range of mental health issues, which
but
is
the lawyer for the families has, as you will have heard, come out very critically about this. Critically in the sense of criticising the move.
Yes.
Saying, in my view, inaccurately, that Broadmoor is merely a psychiatric hospital.
Yes, it's not. It's not.
I've been to Broadmoor.
Yeah.
I've been to Broadmoor twice for conferences with very, very disturbed people.
Phil, I know why you went to Broadmoor, and you know that's not the real reason.
Well, look, I've asked you never to mention that.
That's a good point. Yeah.
That's nearly a breach of your
client confidentiality.
Promise to be confidential, but
yes.
Anybody who suggests to me that place beyond its rather cosy frontage is anything other than a hellhole, I will strongly disagree, because once you get beyond that frontage, it is a Victorian Gothic nightmare.
Yes, you know, they did do some rebuilding, but the Victorian bit remains. You know, I don't know how people work in a place like that, because it's
I don't know either, because when I went there for 2 lots of conferences, you have the conferences on the ward. They don't bring them to you. No. You go to their ward, and you'll watch like a hawk, and they'll watch like a hawk. And in one of the conferences I had, it was done in an old padded cell, and it still had the padding.
And how long did it take you to persuade them to let you back out again?
Richard, on that highly amusing note, I'm going to love you and leave you.
Okay,
And
lovely.
look forward to the next time you say you're up to doing this again.
Lovely.
So
Okay, Phil. It's been a pleasure.
Farewell, brother.
All right. See you. Bye bye.